then we get into this this asset test. And I believe you have to have under $2,000 in assets. And, that sounds relatively simplistic, but then it gets quite complicated when we get into countable assets, non-countable assets. There's different rules depending on whether we're married and what type, and whether our spouse also needs services. The first question I have for you there is, how does that work if I'm going into a nursing home and I'm married? What is my spouse going to be allowed to retain?
Well, there's the default laws, and then there's what we can make happen as an elder law attorney. So
Right.
You want the default laws first?
Sure.
Yeah, so the default laws, if someone does not hire an elder law attorney and just goes to Medicaid and tries it on their own, which of course is a terrible idea, but for those people who do that, they're going to be told that Medicaid is going to divide up all the assets owned by the married couple. And it doesn't matter whose name they're in, husband, wife, although we shouldn't even be using those terms really, just either spouse's name or both spouses' name. All the assets are counted up, tallied together, and then they divide those in half. And the healthy spouse gets to keep half of those assets, but not really, because that's subject to a maximum cap called the maximum community spouse resource allowance, which is, I forget exactly, somewhere about $125,000. So that's the default rules.
Right.
The reality with working with an elder law attorney with a married couple, we can protect all of a married couple's assets and get the nursing home spouse on Medicaid using over 2 dozen different asset protection strategies available to us to protect assets.
That's amazing. And along those lines, you get into these particular types of assets, and different assets seem to receive different treatment. And one particular asset that most people own, obviously, is a home, a personal residence. How is real estate treated for the Medicaid asset test purposes? And does it matter if it's my personal residence versus an investment property or a vacation property?
Yeah, so it does matter, definitely. The primary residence is treated differently in every state. In Virginia, the primary residence is exempt, but only for the first 6 months that the person is living there, unless it's a married couple and the spouse lives in the home, and then it's exempt indefinitely. But it's only exempt for eligibility purposes. And this is a big source of confusion. When people read or hear about the fact that the home is exempt, they think that means it's protected, but it's not protected. Right. Because there is this thing called estate recovery that occurs in every state, including Virginia, where if you die owning a house or any other assets for that matter that might have been exempted during the eligibility process, they're going to snag you after death, because after death, the state's going to come in and claw back those assets as part of the estate recovery process to get paid back for all the money that Medicaid laid out for the nursing home care or the in-home nursing care or the PACE program that we talked about earlier. So houses, other real estate, investment properties, rental properties, whatever, those have to be protected or they're fully countable in Virginia. And for the primary residence, like in every state, it also has to be protected or else it's going to be gotten during clawback. And again, for a single person, it's only exempt for eligibility for 6 months, which is pretty harsh. Most states exempt the property indefinitely as long as somebody indicates an intent to return home, even though that may be a fictitious intent.
Yeah, so it seems like there's sort of two layers to the planning here. One layer, which is a bit more rudimentary, is just sort of how do I qualify sooner? How do I become eligible for Medicaid? And I can move my assets around in order to do that. But then the second layer, obviously, is how do I actually keep these assets permanently? Including after I pass away, or how do I keep these in my family for my spouse or my children? And it seems like that adds another layer of complexity to the planning here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another type of asset I wanted to ask you about that most people own these days is retirement accounts, and we've got IRAs and 401ks and 403bs and different types of retirement accounts. They're all similar in some ways.
Right.
How are these treated? How are these treated, and does it sort of vary by circumstance? But what happens with retirement accounts for Medicaid asset test purposes?
Well, in Virginia, like in most states, retirement account assets are 100% countable towards Medicaid eligibility. The theory is if you can cash them out, if you can liquidate those funds, then those are countable funds, and you need to liquidate them and like any other accounts and pay for your care.
So it doesn't matter whether you're taking an RMD or not. It's just going to be
not at all.
Okay. Yeah.
Completely liquid, completely countable.
And what about life insurance and annuities and similar financial products? I know with life insurance, you got a couple different types. You've got term life insurance, which obviously has no cash value. And my understanding is that generally is not a countable asset, obviously, because it doesn't have, you can't get anything out of it without dying.
Correct.
But then you also have these universal life insurance policies, whole life insurance policies, where they have this cash surrender value. How are these treated?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's the cash surrender value that is what's countable for life insurance.
Right.
So they don't care about the death benefit. It's just the cash surrender value that is fully countable.